Hello, and today we're going to do the demonstrational video on the Benimar Mileo 201. So we'll start around the outside of the vehicle and then we'll work our way to the inside. So starting with the cab, to open up the bonnet on this model, it's that catch there. So you pull that catch and that releases the first stage of the bonnet release. Just while we're here, I'll show you the blind operation. So they pinch together and then you draw in your blind. So that front piece there needs to go in a straight line towards that magnet, so they're held together magnetically. So that blanks off your darkening blinds. The same arrangement on the front, you pinch those two little lugs together. That draws towards the centre. And then this section here bridges that gap for that section there that holds the rear view mirror, and then there's a magnetic strip across the front of this that will draw together and seal onto the opposing side. When you draw these back, just make sure that you go in a straight line with this section here, otherwise you can nip the blinds. So it needs to go back in a straight line like that, and then they just clip back into position. While we're here, the tyre pressures are displayed on this pillar here, and then directly below that pillar is your fuel filler. You will need your key to open that up, so that's your diesel fuel in there. So to open the bonnet fully, there's the catch underneath, and then underneath here, so just to run through, you've got your coolant, you've got your brake fluid, oil filler, the dipstick. The dipstick's just tucked away there with that red cap on it. If you want to, or if you ever need to jump start this vehicle, the battery's isn't housed under the bonnet, that's in the floor of the cab, but there is a procedure for doing that. So to jump start it, there's the positive terminal, which is just down here. You might need the key to go into that little lug there, just to allow you to open it. And then that's lifted up, so that's the positive terminal, so your red cable on there, and then your ground is this little lug here, so your black cable onto that one. So that's the bonnet, under the bonnet dealt with. Just working our way around to the driver's side. So this here is where the mains cable would come in. When you're putting this in, so that releases the cable once it's in. But as you put in, so the mains cable will look like this. You lift the lid up like that, and then slide that in and push it home. And then to release it, you're pressing that button there. As we work our way around, to fill up the fresh water tank, which is on board, it's this here, not to be confused with fuel at all. So that's where you would fill the fresh water tank. Now you just fill that until it pours back out. There's no you can't overfill it, so just fill that until it pours out. In winter, or when the vehicle isn't being used for any length of time, it is important to drain the water out of that tank. If you leave water in that tank and it freezes, it will expand and then it will crack the tank. So the way that you drain that down is you need to use this cap here, which is just in the driver's door pocket, and that screws directly onto a thread which is underneath the vehicle. So that there, so at the moment the freshwater tank is completely drained. So in order to fill the tank, you would need to put that cap back onto there, otherwise it won't retain its water. So working it back around the vehicle further on, this is the toilet waste compartment. So as you're using the toilet, this is the cassette that gets filled. to empty that, and there is an indication inside, which I'll show you when we go inside, to tell you when that's becoming full. So there's a little tab there that needs to be lifted up, and then you draw this out. So this is the container then that's full of toilet waste. To empty that, you push this nozzle forward, unscrew the cap on the end and take that off, and then you're pouring away from that nozzle. As you're doing so, press this button in and it lets air in at this end as the liquid's coming out that end, so then it doesn't glug and it's just a pure flow of liquid coming out. This cassette requires a chemical, so to fill it with the chemical, you slide that cover back, open this blade, and then pour the required amount of chemical into there. So you just want to fill the bottom of this cassette with a little bit of water so that it's lined on the bottom, and then use the required amount of chemical. So what that chemical does is it breaks down all the solids, gets rid of the smell, and then you're just emptying a pure liquid from the end of that nozzle. So the next thing along next to the toilet cassette is this chimney for the boiler. So when the boiler is operational, either to heat your vehicle or heating the water, and that's where it expels the exhaust gas. If you're running it on gas, it'll also expel heat from there if it's running on electric. It's important that that's free of debris. If that's blocked up, the boiler will fail because it'll sense that it's not exhausting properly. You will get steam rising from this in cold weather conditions, so it's not anything to worry about. You will see steam rising from that. The next one down here, as we work our way around the vehicle, is an indication there to tell you that that's the wastewater tank. So everything that goes down the plug hole, whether it be the shower or the kitchen, ends up in a waste tank underneath the vehicle. There's an indication inside to tell you when that is full, as with the fresh water as well, which we'll come to in a second when we go inside the vehicle. If that requires emptying, it's done so by releasing this handle here. So in the open position, to open it, you pull it towards you. To close it, you're pushing it back. So that's closed, pull it towards you, that'll open it, and then the wastewater will flow from the wastewater tank, which is just housed there. So you'll see that there's a nozzle there. So if you park over the grid that's on most sites, position your vehicle so that the wastewater goes down the grid. It's like a cattle grid. You just and then that's the waste disposal point for your wastewater. Working our way towards the back of the vehicle then, this is the garage and storage area. For the boiler, so you've got the boiler will require 10 litres of water, which is drawn from the fresh water tank when you open up the tap. You can't really see it on this video, but inside there's a drain valve. That's thermostatic. If the temperature reaches 6 degrees, it will automatically drop all the water out of the boiler. You can also do that manually via the blue tab, which is on top of that black box. So I've just turned that around so it's pointing towards the front of the vehicle. In its closed position, you can see that I've moved that blue tab around. On the front of that black box, which is difficult to see on this video, but it will become clear when you see it to the naked eye, there's a little blue button on the front of that black box that also needs to be pressed in. Otherwise, water will drain straight out of the boiler and you won't get any hot water out of the taps in the kitchen or the shower. In the garage area on this model, directly above where the boiler is housed, we've got the fuses. So this one here is your charger unit. You can see that it's doing its job because it's displaying a red light. This here is the mains circuit breaker, so like a domestic circuit breaker at home. If these tabs are in the down position, then there's either been a fault or a short on the on one of the mains circuitry or mains appliances that you're using. You can test this. You can test that you've got mains supply coming into the vehicle by pressing that test button there, and then that will drop so that you know that this is doing its job and you've also got mains coming into the vehicle. This here, next one, is a bank of 12-volt fuses. That is, well, it's the fuses for the 12-volt circuitry. So each one of those will have a job to do on the 12-volt circuit, and they're labelled next to each other, but in the instruction manual it does tell you which fuse does which. So if you've got a 12-volt problem, either with the pump or the lights, etc., then that's your first port of call to diagnose where the problem is. This panel actually is removable, so you've got easier access to that. This is the drain valve that I was referring to through that little hatch that's there, but that's the tab. So that's open, that's closed, and then there's a little blue button which is just there on the front of that valve. So that's the drain valve. So you've got a bit of better access if you take this panel out that's here. So that's the boiler in there. This model's fitted with a spare wheel, which is housed just there. The toolkit is next to it in that box, this black box here. This model, you can also lower the bed at the back. That's done by putting this winder into that key there, and then you wind this to raise and lower this bed here. So that's the pulley system that raises and lowers the bed. There's a main socket in there just in the door, and also a 12-volt socket, which is the round one. Just something that's noteworthy with these handles, when you've closed the door, you'll see that they're still protruding. They need to be pushed in like that, and then you can lock. It is labelled up there, but it's difficult to see. So yeah, so you can see that a bit better there. So you need to push those in and then lock these. So working our way towards the back of the vehicle, if you wanted to fit a bike rack, you could. It's pre-drilled with the rails on it. This one doesn't have that. Up there is the camera, which is that little black round lens there. Just need to keep that clear of debris. Sometimes when it rains, if there's water on there, you'll get a distorted view. But when you select reverse, it comes on the dash, the central mounted dash system. So working our way towards the other back end corner, got a fire extinguisher, cab mats, carpets. This model is fitted with rear corner steadies. That's the winder for the rear corner steadies. The rear corner steadies are mounted just underneath here, so you're putting that winder onto those and it'll lower these corner steadies down. So that won't level the vehicle, it'll just keep it steady if you've got windy conditions. This model's also fitted with an awning. The awning winder is housed just here. That just unclips. To wind out the awning, this winder is placed in this key here. And then the same as the bed winder really, you use it like that. So you're winding the awning out. So what you need to do is wind the awning out around that far. I can't get it fully extended because we're next to the building here, but if you wind it out about that far, then extend the legs, which you've done. You can see if you pull it at this end, that extends on there. And then come to this end, let the foot end out. And then that leg is extended via that wing nut there. So if you angle these legs out, then angle the legs out slightly and then wind the awning out to its full extent. These bars here never go straight, so don't wind it out too far. There's always a kink in that arm, So it'll come out probably, that's probably a third out, so it'll come out another 2/3, but just be careful, don't wind it out too far. So it is designed for that, still to have a kink in it. It's not designed to go straight. So when you put the leg back in, you wind the awning back in and then continue winding until that front section goes back into its box. So working along now around the outside of the vehicle. This is the gas locker. It'll take 2 6-kilogram bottles. You want to use propane, which is the red bottles. So the way this works is that one of those goes into the right hand bottle, so you go in reverse thread with these, you're turning it anti-clockwise. You don't need a spanner with this, it's alright to just be finger tight because it's got the rubber nodule on the back. So this is the end that goes into your gas bottle, and then on the top of the gas bottle it's got a tap which you turn on, and that is then supplying gas to the vehicle. Same with the other side, so that goes on the left hand side bottle and they're secured by these straps here. On this model it's got a changeover valve, so what that does is that you can change over from one side to the other. So if that one becomes empty, then you just turn that nozzle over to that side, and then you're getting your gas supply from the right hand side bottle. This is what's called a crash sensor, so you can actually travel with gas switched on this model. I don't recommend it, but it is possible to do so. What it does is it senses it as an impact and then switches off the gas. You need to just press that button in to get the gas flowing through the pipe into the vehicle. So when you first connect to the gas, it'll pressurize this diaphragm, and then you need to push that button in. Next one along is these are just vents for the fridge, so it draws cool air in at the bottom, expels it at the top. Just need to be left free of debris. If you park next to a wall or a hedge on site, sometimes that can overheat the fridge, so just make sure that these vents are kept free of debris. Next one along is an external main socket, so if you want a light or maybe an electric heater or any mains appliance outside, that's where you plug it in. Obviously make sure that anything's not getting wet outside, so that's where that's plugged in. Next one along is an external gas supply, so if you had an external gas barbecue that you wanted to use outside, then that's where you would plug that in. So that is the gas supply. This hose here is what connects to the gas supply, so you literally push this in to there, and that's the gas supply connected, and then switch it on with that tap there. To release it, there's a collar there, you just push that up and that allows you to release that hose. There's also an external shower point, which is just similar thing, so this is the hose for the external shower point. You just push that in. You just push that in and it's a bayonet fitting. Same thing again, you just push that collar. It's difficult to see with one hand, but if you just push that collar, there's a collar there, you just push that and that releases the hose. And then on the other end of that you've got a tap, so you're pushing that in and that sprays water from the shower head. Okay, so we'll move on to the inside of the vehicle now. As we come in, start at the front, this has got swivel seats, so to swivel those, it's that tab there, pull it round. They won't always go round in one go, you've probably got to go forward and back with the bar underneath there to get them to go round. So you've got to go forward and back, there's a bit of sort of adjustment to get them to go round. That's exactly the same on the driver's seat. Just with the cab on this vehicle's automatic. I just want to show you how that operates, so I'll just get the engine started. You need your foot on the brake. So this is the gear selector here, so it moves in that direction. So in the top right is neutral, and that's displaying that little N on the dash just there. So that's neutral. If you want to put it into automatic, you bring it down and let it slide across, so it's literally you could just push it down and it'll slide across into automatic. Now if you want to select your gears yourself, you can, and that's done by selecting up and down when it's over in that automatic position, and then that will then select your gears. So you can see it changing there from 1 to 2 as I'm moving this up and down. To get it back into full automatic mode, you need to then come across and put it back into automatic. So push it across to automatic, and then it displays the auto symbol there. So if you think it's revving too high, you've probably got it in manual mode. You need to just push it across and it'll go into automatic. Reverse is over that way and down to the left. Sorry, down to the right. So that in that lowest right position, that is reverse. Just to be clear on this, it's not a full automatic, it's a roboticized manual, so it won't actually, if you take your foot off the brake, it will roll. So you need to then either put your foot back on the brake or press the accelerator to move off. Just on another thing on the dash, if you lift this up here, you can, and then pull that lever down, you can put a mobile phone into that. It's spring loaded, so the bottom goes into that little clasp there, top into there, and then once it's sprung down, you press that back in, it'll lock it into position. So that's what that symbol represents there. To get it back down, push those back into position. Make sure your little lever's in before you push it down or you'll snap that off. And that pushes back down like that. Working our way towards the back of the vehicle then. So the main controls for the vehicle are here. So this is the main control for the vehicle. So you're pressing this button here to switch on the 12-volt circuits. Okay, so that's your main switch to switch the vehicle on. There's another 12-volt switch there, which basically, if that isn't switched on, the vehicle won't charge. Just the way these are wired. So that needs to be switched on in order for the battery to charge from the mains that we've got coming in. The next one along is the water pump. So with that, you won't get any water out your taps without that switched on. You might be able to hear that running. But because we've got the boiler drain open and the freshwater cap off, that pump is doing nothing. It can't pressurize anything, so it's just pushing water out onto the floor. So if you don't get any water out of your taps, you need to make sure that all the valves are closed and that pump is switched on. When you first switch that pump on and then you've filled up your water supply, you need to purge all the air that would then be in the system out, and you do that by switching your pump on, opening up your tap in both the bathroom and the kitchen. So switch it to hot, switch the mixer tap, switch it over to hot, lift that up, wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of there, and then you know that you've purged all the air out of the pipes, you've filled up the boiler from the freshwater tank, and you've just got a pure supply of water in your pipes, and you've filled up the boiler. Switch that over to the cold side and do exactly the same on that. So back to the control panel then. This is your external light. I think that's your awning switch actually there, your awning light switch. All the other light switches are switched separately. The next one along here is your so you've got a symbol of the motorhome here. So if you press that button there, you can see that it's illuminated this here, which is your motorhome battery, and then your level is indicated here. So we're plugged in, that will be full. If that doesn't display a full charge, it means that your battery's flat but is charging. The next one along is your cab battery. So that's display. So you've got an illumination there to say it's your cab battery, and then we're in good condition, as indicated by this level here. Next one is your fresh water situation. So if you press that button, it's telling us with no water in it, so it's in the red there. So there's only 4 positions, so there's 4 probes inside the tank, so it'll only ever be one of 4 positions. So with no water in it, because the drain is open. You can adjust the brightness of the display if you want with that button there. This button, this illumination here, is to tell us that we've got a main supply coming in, so it's recognising that we're plugged into the mains. This flashing light here is to say that the wastewater tank is empty, and it's warning is empty. Sorry, your freshwater tank is empty, and it needs filling. This one here, if it illuminates, is to tell you that your wastewater tank is full, so that needs draining. Okay, next one down is your boiler and heater controls. So to switch this on, you're pressing this button here in the middle, and then this is a dial system. So let me get to the main menu. Okay, so when you first press it, that's your main menu. So you've got here a picture of the motorhome with a thermostat in it. So if you then press that in, and it gives you an option for a temperature. So then you're selecting your temperature via a scroll on this wheel here. So if I was to set that to 22 room temperature and then press it in the middle, so then the next scroll along is so you've got that next flashing icon. You press it in the middle again. This is your water temperature. Okay, so just let me come out of that. It's displaying a fault code. We'll come to that in a second. Next one along is your water temperature. So that's off. You've got eco or hot. So eco is 40 degrees, hot is 60 degrees, so that's your water temperature. Boost will heat it quickly, but it uses it switches off the heating of the van and uses just the power to boost the hot water. So if you want hot water very quickly, if you want to wash up or a shower, then that's the position you want it in. Sorry. Okay, so that's your hot water. Next one along is selecting your power supply. Okay, we've got a fault code coming up because it's asking for us to heat everything on gas at the moment. So with no gas, so it will go. So okay, so we've got an error code there. So it's because it's trying to heat everything on gas, which we haven't got. So I'll come out of that, go back into it, and then you've got, let's see that. So you've got mix 1, which is a mix of electric and 1 kilowatt. A mix of gas and 1 kilowatt electric. Next one along, the next one along would be a mix of gas and 2 kilowatt electric. Electric only on 1 kilowatt, electric only on 2 kilowatt. So if I select that now, because we've got electric coming in. The next one along is you can adjust the fan if you want to. You shouldn't need to, because this works out how ferociously the fan should be running based on the ambient temperature and the temperature that you've set before via the thermostat. Okay, so we've got the next flashing icon here. You can set this to come on at a certain time and go off at a certain time. This one here is warning us that we had no gas coming in. So to get rid of that, what you need to do is so we've got rid of the warnings triangle by pressing on there. Should you disconnect from electric, it may be necessary to reset this boiler. So if your electric supply is disrupted or your gas supply is disrupted, it may be necessary to go through a reset on the boiler. So you do that by scrolling through to the picture of the spanner, if I can get there. Okay, so you've got this flashing here. Press that, scroll through to the reset, press that, then you've got PR set press it again, and so it's initializing. Okay, so it completely resets the whole system. You can sometimes get an error code come up here where that's necessary. You will need to wait 20 minutes after doing that in order to switch the boiler back on. So that is only really ever triggered if you have a disconnect in your electric supply. So be careful. You need to switch this off before you disconnect your electric, otherwise you'll get that error code and you'll have to reset, go through that reset process. So working our way towards the front then, oven and hob, fairly straightforward. The only thing I would say about this is if that will remain hot because it's an electric plate, even if you've switched it off. If you then put this down, once that's still hot, it will shatter that lid. So the oven and grill controls on the front there, fairly straightforward. That's your ignition. So the next thing along is the fridge. This is a three-way fridge, so you're switching it on via that button there. Okay, so you've got an electrical display here. You can run this fridge on 3 power sources, 12 volt, mains electric or gas. Okay, so the way to select your power source is, so your power sources are displayed along here, and then that's your temperature control. So if you select this main button here, keep it depressed, and then it's giving you the option to scroll through via these arrows through your power sources. Okay, so the main one is, so you've got mains electric. Okay, so we're plugged into mains. If you wanted to select that, you give that a press. 12 volt, that will only work while the engine is running, so that's to be used while the engine is running, and it will only keep it cool. You need to get it cold first at home on electric or gas. Okay, so that you're scrolling through like this to select your power sources. So in this case I'm going to select electric, and then it's asking me what temperature I want to set the fridge to. So if it's really hot outside, you want it on the hotter setting, on the cooler setting, so that like that, so it's really hot outside. If it's cold outside and you have it on the higher setting like that, it'll freeze up, so you need to, if it's really cold outside, just have it on that setting there. So you press the button again, so we're running on mains electric at a low power output, so that's the warmer setting, if you will. So the important thing to remember with this is, if you've got this on electric and then you move off, this fridge will start getting hot, so then you need to select the relevant power source. So if you've got it on electric, mains electric like it is there, and you're going on a long journey, you then need to switch it to the 12 volt, which comes from the engine. If you've not got mains electric and the engine isn't running, then you would select gas and then cool it on gas. So that would be the function that you would use if you weren't on sites, so off-grid camping. Whenever the fridge isn't in use, there's a little tab here to keep the fridge slightly ajar. It's important you do that because if the fridge is left closed, it's got a magnetic catch on it, stagnant air builds up in there and it starts to smell. Okay, so on to the bathroom and the toilet system. So to use the toilet, lift the lid obviously, and then this little tab here opens and closes the blade which was on the toilet, cassette which I showed you outside. So to open and close that, it's that switch there, and it's opening and closing the blade which is just inside there, which is attached to that cassette. So when you're using the toilet, come along, lift the lid, open up the valve, use the toilet, and then the flush is just there, and then that's an indication there to tell you when the cassette is becoming full. So at the moment it's mostly green. If it was to become all red, then you know that that cassette is then full and needs emptying. This model has a shower that's pulled out from there and then is located onto there to use the shower. to release the shower door, so that when you so the shower door comes across and encircles this area here, so that it creates a separate shower. To release those, to release the door, you just need to put some pressure on there and then pull that little round nodule out to release it. And the same applies to this one here. You see that locates onto that little pin. So to put it into position, you just push it on. It's just difficult with one hand. So that's now on, and then to release it, you're just pulling that little round nozzle towards you. Just make sure that those doors are fixed while you're travelling, because if they start flapping about, it will crack the panels. There's an extractor just in the middle here, and that will only work while the flap is open. So you release the flap by undoing that there, switch it on by that middle button. You can adjust the speed by pressing that button there, and you can see that the lights illuminate. It'll blow in or draw air out. So that's expelling air, this is drawing air in. Don't switch, if that's on full speed on one side, don't switch between the two, because it'll blow the fuse. So it's spinning one way really fast, don't spin it the other way really fast suddenly. Okay, so that concludes the instructional video. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those before collection or on the day of collection. Hope that was informative, and I look forward to seeing you when you collect the vehicle.